Collective Creative Initiative Drinking Bailey Harris Kelly is on, ladies and gentlemen, providing equal opportunity despite economic circumstance. The time is 1:30, or should I say 33 minutes past 1. And what a great start we had to the morning with Sean Reeves and our online monologue winner, Julia and Bruce Knight, for an insightful morning with regards to singing, self-tapes, the lot. Right now, we have a very, very exciting Q&A, so get the notepads at the ready, get your questions at the ready. Also, because we have a commercial casting Q&A with Claire from Crocodile Casting, just seeing her backstage. Hello! You think I'm crazy because I'm waving and I'm just waving at a screen. There we go. But please remember, if you haven't subscribed already, please do, and leave your comments in the box below. We only have an hour. And subscribers, again, we now are providing you with an amazing opportunity to have access for 12 months free of backstage resources and actors' most trusted source of career advice and casting opportunity for 60 years, may I add. So please subscribe now for access. You hear enough from me, like all the time. So let's just jump into the thick of it. Claire is here. Good afternoon to you.
Hello. I hope you're not all melting in the heat.
Oh, slowly. Just
like I'm living on the sun at the moment.
Yeah. Claire, how have you been? How's everything going?
Well, it's been a weird and wonderful time. Well, not wonderful. That's a wrong way of putting it. Wonderful in as much as at the start of lockdown, Tracie, I work in a partnership. My business partner is called Tracie. We've been together for 23 years. So we were running a lot of workshops to start off with, which started off as a small thing, and then demand got really, really high for it. So we were running these workshops nearly every day, and it gave us the opportunity to meet lots and lots of new actors, which was really great. We wanted to give something back. You know, it was a full kind of workshop all about the commercial casting process, really, because a lot of people don't really understand how it works. So we covered lots and lots of different subjects, and then we would end it all off with some script work. And so it was obviously really nice to be able to see actors actually working rather than, you know, because it's a bit soulless, this Zoom thing. So it was actually really nice to be able to interact with people and give them a chance to work on the script and stuff. So it was good. Since then, touch wood, things have picked up business-wise, and we've actually been quite busy with commercials, a couple of really nice little short films, a regular slot that we do with dentists. Yeah. We do a lot of work with dentists, and yeah, so we've been very lucky, to be honest. But you know, so we just have to kind of make hay while the sun shines, because you just never know how these things are going to go.
Just for those, because I see more people are coming in as we're going through this. Just breaking down what commercial casting is. Is it all right if you just inform our listeners
what commercial casting is?
Yeah, just maybe simply. I know it's very, very like, you know, it's an array of stuff, but just touching it on the surface.
Well, commercial casting is a very different ball game, I think, to say film or television casting, because basically actors are being employed to sell a product. And what I always say to actors is, you know, and I'm an ex-actor myself, I was an actor for 17 years before I went into casting, is you don't become an actor to do commercials. So in order to take part in commercials, you need to have the hide of an elephant, because the people who are employing you, in general terms, don't give a stuff what your background is, where you trained, how much work you've done. You're part of a, it sounds a bit harsh, but it's a bit of a cattle market. You're there to sell the product, and they're looking initially for the right look. Secondary is very much is talent to look generally, unless it's something very specific and very difficult. So it's a very fast process, and you should never take it personally, because if you don't get a job, I think the average hit for commercials is something like maybe 1 in 40, something like that. It's very different. You know, you can be in and out in 30 seconds, and it can be a very impersonal way of casting. But I think it's a very good grounding for actors, because it's very instant. You know, you're expected to come into the studio, you've got a script or you've been given a script to learn and it's instant. You can't stand there and pontificate about, you know, what your motivation is or anything like that. Because half the time you're performing in front of people, A, who probably aren't even in the room, or B, who just do not understand how actors work. So it's a good grounding, and there are some actors who are incredibly good at doing commercial castings, and there are some actors who just don't get it at all. And that's no reflection on their talent. It's just that, you know, I've got girlfriends myself who I work with and I've been friendly with for years who will not go for commercials because they just don't like the process of it. You have to just have a lot of balls to do commercial castings, because you could be asked to do anything. And if you're going to be precious about it, then there is no point in even trying.
Like, because it is a different process going into it with regards to the self-taping now and trying to just put the pressures away and just focus on that one thing, sell that product. What can people do to just breathe with it and help themselves, help their chances in times like this?
With self-tapes?
With self-tapes.
It's very difficult. We do our self-tape castings two ways now. So we either just send out instructions for self-tape, or a better way, the way that I prefer to do it, is we do it over Zoom and we actually direct the actors over Zoom. But when we do that, we tend to do it through a studio. So the studio will kind of like let people in and out, because it's you wouldn't believe it, but self-tape casting is so much more work for a casting director to do. It is mind-bogglingly busy, and half the time I just feel like I'm collecting data, because I'm putting out instructions for self-tape, I'm giving a deadline for the actors to send the self-tape back by, then I've got to upload all these flipping self-tapes onto a FTP site, then I've got to go through them, I've got to get rid of the ones that I don't think are right, you know, if there are any that aren't right. Actors can really help themselves by getting the self-tape right. I'm quite dismayed, actually, to be honest with you, to see how unprepared a lot of actors are to do the self-tapes. You know, people have had enough time now to look at self-tape workshops, you know, like on Spotlight, Equity, all these places. I'm constantly watching actors, and I appreciate that not everybody lives in a big house with a blank wall, but I'm watching actors with all their crap behind them.
Washing line,
crap. You know, we just say, please try and find a blank wall. Please try and find at least a relatively blank wall. Or please try and purchase one of these pull-up things, you know, a pull-up backdrop. They're not very expensive. And I appreciate that, you know, a lot of people don't have the money to spend on that. But you know, some of the setups are really poor, and that is very distracting, you know, to try and watch a self-tape. You've got to bear in mind that these self-tapes are being sent to clients. And whilst everybody understands that it's not a professional studio, it can look so untidy. B, actors not following the instructions. We send very, very explicit instructions with our castings. Say your name to camera, do profiles, left and right. Here's the scene, blah, de, blah, de, blah, do it twice. A lot of the time, the actors don't do what is requested of them. They don't label their clip. You can imagine, I'm downloading all these clips. It's got no name on it. I've got to go back. I've got to rename it. It's a pain in the arse, you know. Or they don't get the video size right. So that means then we've got to put it through iMovie. If the file is too big, we can't upload it. It's got to be a certain size. Or we say to them, please don't send multiple clips. One film, right? We get actors who'll send 10 clips. I'm not going to sit and edit 10 clips together. It'll go in the dustbin, because, you know, just as we have had to adapt to this new way of working, which I really don't like, because I'd much rather have actors in the studio and be able to converse with them and all that kind of stuff. Actors have got to get professional about this. You know, you want to be taken seriously as a professional actor. Your self-tape needs to look as professional as possible. You wouldn't believe it. Every single job we do, we say, please make a digital slate with your name and agent, or hold up a piece of paper. I had a casting the other day where we had 40 actors, and out of those 40 actors, 4 of them had done a digital slate or held up a piece of paper. Then we say to them, please send them to this address. We've got a special email address for our self-tapes. Half of them get sent to the wrong address. which is a small thing, but it's annoying because people
listening and reading.
Huh?
It's the listening and reading of it all.
Yeah, people are not listening to or they're not reading the stuff, or they're just like, also the other day, a casting that we had, the deadline was 12 noon. They'd had from Thursday to Tuesday 12 noon to do the self-tape. 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, self-tapes were still rolling in. You're going to miss it, because if the self-tapes are late, casting directors will just put them in the dustbin. But then what happens is we get emails. Oh, how come my WhatsApp hasn't, my WeTransfer hasn't been downloaded? Well, it hasn't been downloaded because it was late, and we have a deadline with the client. If we say to the client, you're going to have all the tapes by 2 p.m. this afternoon, we have to do that because they're waiting for them. So, it should be treated. It should be treated like a proper casting. That's what I say. And people should try and be as professional as possible about it. Don't leave it for ages and then at the last minute, oh God, I forgot to do that self-tape. If you want to do this stuff, then you need to do it properly.
Extending just quickly that conversation, Yasmin was just saying, and I know we just quickly talked about it. It was just saying we've gone through focus on appearance, headshots, but with the showreels, is it important for commercials as well as TV and film? Yeah.
When we did our workshop, and I still haven't seen many of these, to be honest, we gave a really important piece of advice. If you can imagine, Tracie and I, we could get 1,500 suggestions for one part. if we put a job out to all the agents or whatever, we tend to like to be inclusive. So our jobs do mostly go out to all the agents and quite often to unrepresented actors. And we do generally always look at showreels as if we don't know somebody. So in my experience, showreels are often not very good, especially for younger actors who don't have very much. They tend to do a lot of horror films and stuff like that, which seem to be shot in the dark. So we're not getting like a good, clear image of people. Sometimes it's really hard to spot who you are, unless it's a monologue or something like that. Monologues are brilliant for showreels, but anything that really shows you off in a good light and is current, not something that is 25 years old, waste of time, or something that is bad, pixelated, unclear. People will just switch that off. But what Tracie and I really would like people to do is to make what we would call, a living photo, if you like, which is a little ident that you can put on your showreel at the top. Maybe you've got different links for like comedy, drama, or whatever. Make an ident and date it. And in that ident, you just need to set yourself up like me, head and shoulders. You say, hi, name, you say your name to camera. Most recently, I've done blah, 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 and blah, and then just give a couple of profiles. It needs to be about 20 seconds long and current, so you can be constantly changing it, so that if you dye your hair or if you shave your beard or whatever, you can keep it up to date, so that commercial casting directors who often work at an incredibly fast pace, we may have a job in the morning that we need to get out and sort of cast by 5 o'clock that afternoon. We can see what you currently look like, and that for us is really, really helpful.
With management, what do you put in place, or what have you learned over the process of getting to where you're at to really just help you maximize that time and take priority of everything?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Like, what do you have in place to really just put all the rubbish in the side and just get the job done as quickly as you can? What are the tips and tricks that you've learned that really helps you deliver the goods?
What, for actors or casting directors?
For actors.
Well, a lot of that lies with the agents, because a lot of the time, we can put a casting brief out and we'll get a lot of suggestions. And the agents will suggest a load of people and we'll go through all the suggestions, and then we'll book everybody in, and then the agents will come back and go, oh, we're really sorry, but he's on holiday, or we can't get hold of such and such. It's really important that actors give their agents their availability, because the agents are notorious. They don't always have the time to check people out in advance. Do you know what I mean? They've got lots and lots of jobs coming on. They can't always be, emailing actors and going, are you free to come up for this? So actors, if they're not available, they need to make sure that their agents know about that. A lot of it is really down to the agents to suggest appropriately. We get, it amazes me that some agents will just like suggest everybody on their books, regardless of what the casting brief is. I mean, it's very difficult to say because Tracie and I have got a very particular way of working. You know, we've been working together for 22 years, and we don't have assistants. I mean, for us, an assistant would probably be a hindrance more than anything, because our way of working, we know each other, and so we can get things done really quickly. Yeah, so I think a lot of the onus lies on the agents to suggest appropriately, and for the actors to be available when they're supposed to be, and if they're not, then to let them know.
Talking about like relationships and working really, really well, like forming Crocodile Casting. When did that come in place, and why did you think this is a moment, this is really something that I really want to pursue?
Well, there's a little story to that. Back in the day when I was acting, actors didn't become casting directors. It was a very small pool of quite cliquey casting directors, and myself, I used to do a lot of commercials when I was acting, but I had a contact who put me in touch with a major casting director who was looking for assistants, and I worked for that company on and off for about 4 or 5 years. So I kind of learned the trade through then. And back in the day, we didn't have Spotlight online. It was all the Spotlight volumes and all that kind of stuff, the books. We had to plow through the books. And this casting director, they had their A, B list and C list of agents. So first of all, you know, they give you long lists of actors to check out. And first of all, you do the A list, and then you move on to the B list. And if you would, you know, and then on to the C list. So I kind of learned in a very sort of old school way, and I really enjoyed it. And I was given a lot of responsibility, and I started to go to the sessions and direct the actors. And I did that all the time, like in between my acting jobs and whilst I was pregnant with my son. And I really liked it. And just kind of like slowly, people started to ask me to do bits and pieces. I had a friend who had a small production company, and Tracie was kind of doing the same thing, freelancing in between jobs. And then just for a laugh, I applied for casting director at the Royal Court Theatre. I thought, you know, I got an interview for it, and I thought, oh, well, I may as well go along. I didn't expect to get the job. I went along. I didn't get the job, but I came in second. And I was quite pleased with myself, really, because we had to kind of cast a sort of, you know, do a kind of like an imaginary cast. They gave us a play, and I had to kind of cast it with, you know, actors and blah, blah, blah. And from that, I was offered a job at the National Theatre in the casting department, but I couldn't take it because the money was so bad. At that time, I was married, and we'd just taken on a mortgage and all that kind of stuff. So Tracie had a party one night, and we'd worked together as actors. We'd become like very firm friends. And somebody said, oh, why don't you start a casting company? And we're like, oh, that's a good idea. Because I loved it. And so we set up in the name of Crocodile Casting because we didn't know if it was going to take off. And, you know, it was a bit of a gamble, to be honest, because if we got found out, that could have been the end of our acting career. So we wanted to keep our options open. So we set up in a very, very small way. And we got a lucky break through one of the mums from the school that Tracie's son went to, who happened to be head of television for a big advertising agency. And she kind of took us under our wing, and that's how we started, really, thanks to her. And from there, the business grew, and then people found out that we were Crocodile Casting, and the shit hit the fan for a short amount of time. But yeah, you know, it was back in those days. I mean, there's a lot of actors turned casting directors now, but back then it was a far smaller circle of people. But yeah, that's how we got going. And now we've been in business for 23 years.
It's incredible. I just want to just quickly say, guys, we've gone into we've done a third of the Q&A thus far. We've got questions coming through, but for those that are just coming in, please, we've only got this time to ask Claire questions. So just,
yeah, otherwise I'm going to melt.
Yeah, we'll only last another 40 minutes, please.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, Claire. It says here, TL 2020, I'm in my late 40s and feel that over the last few years, there have been fewer commercial opportunities. Do I need to just ride it out till I'm suitable for silver roles, etc.? Yeah,
in a word. Unfortunately, even though, you know, late 40s to 50s are probably the biggest market for the TV audience, there is so little around for people of that age. You know, it's really unfair, but there is. We very rarely cast, especially women in their sort of late 40s to 50s. It's just the way it is, and yeah, you have to wait until you're going to be like a glamorous granny, I think. And even now, we still like cast grannies. You know, often their idea of a grandma is in their 40s. Well, you know, so by the time you're 60, you know, in the world of TV advertising, you're a great grandmother. Unfortunately, at the moment, that is the way it is. There's very few roles for women in that age group.
With roles with process, do you have a favourite moment, a favourite part where you're like, oh, this is where I have the most pleasure. This gives me a real hit. This does.
What, with the casting process?
Casting process. Sorry.
Yeah. What gives me a real hit is when the actor who I really want to get the job gets the job. You know, it's never my choice or Tracie's choice. It's always, you know, occasionally they'll say, who do you think? And then we'll say, well, we thought blah, blah, and blah, blah. And often it's the person, you know, who we thought least, who's gonna get the job. Oh, excuse me, I just made myself choke on that. But I really love it when the person who I think was the best gets the job. And you know, it's a great business because at the end of the day, you know, I see myself as, you know, you liken it most to kind of like being in recruitment. You know, I see myself as a recruitment agency for actors. That's what it is.
Do you get that like gut feeling that, because people always talk about, I just know it, I just see it, and I just see them in the role. Is that what you see, or is it the development?
Yeah, I do, but inevitably the client doesn't see it the same way. It's very, the problem is with these jobs, there are so many people involved in the choice, and a lot of the time the person who gets chosen isn't even the choice of the director, you know, because you're talking about the money here, you know, and the final word generally goes to the client. So even if the director's got his choices and, you know, it's a wonderful performance, etc., it's not a given that that person is going to get the job, because the client will override it if he doesn't want that particular actor.
Like, in that way, then, do they just see all the different tapes, or do they just see the stills of how?
No. So basically what happens is the commercial casting process is a long, drawn-out process, even though it can happen very quickly. I will try and Tracie it as quick as I can. So, I mean, I'm a self-employed person, like you guys are, so we have to wait to be given a job. And basically what happens nowadays is a casting can be pitched out to dozens of different production companies. A lot of it is to do with cost, a lot of it is to do with, you know, where do they want to shoot it? And, you know, it's very competitive because, you know, other country rates for commercials are cheaper than the UK. Although actors in the UK have got the best reputation and people love to use actors from here, a lot of the time, you know, they want to save money. They don't want to spend money. So a production will, once an advertising agency has been given the jobs, because they also have to pitch for jobs as well. So the advertising agency get given the job or the account for this particular product. Then they have to assign a production company. So this job will be briefed out to lots of different production companies. The production companies they sit down and they write their whole brief and they write their production stuff and they film animatics and all sorts of things. The director's ideas, how he wants to shoot it, how he wants to cast it, where the locations would be. Very, you know, involved pieces of stuff, really, which can often cost them a lot of money to put together, because a lot of the time they're making test commercials and animatics in order to try and sell themselves to the advertising agent. So generally what happens is the client will look at all these pitches they could be from all over the world. I mean, I'm exaggerating a bit, they're not generally, but, you know, they could be from different countries in Europe, you know, another company in the States, another company in Canada. And they'll narrow it down, say, to 3 different production companies. So they'll shortlist it. So whilst these companies are all doing their briefs and their pitches, they're also doing their budgets. So they will come to the casting directors that they work with and ask for a casting budget. So that's where Tracie and my job come in. It can take us 10 minutes to do a casting budget, but for the production companies, they could be spending weeks putting their pitch together. So it's a lot of work for them. We sometimes get asked to budget for the same commercial from 4 or 5 different production companies, depending on who our contacts are and who we work with. So then 3 production companies will eventually get shortlisted, and then one of these production companies will get the job. So if it's our production company, we get the job. And if it's not our production company, we don't. But a lot of the time, if it's a foreign commercial, which is what we tend to do an awful lot of, not only will they be casting in the UK, they'll also be casting in the country where they plan to shoot it, or they might be casting some of the roles. So as actors, you're not just competing against British actors, you're also competing against actors from that other country or countries. You know, they do tend to cast quite internationally now a lot of the time, especially for commercials which are going to the States and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the kind of process. It's, you know, it's it's competitive. It's competitive for everybody, you know. For us, once the job is cast, then that's our bit done, really. But yeah, it's not, you know, occasionally somebody will get in touch. Back in the old days, people would just call us and go, "Oh, hi girls, can you cast this?" And that does still happen, but more so with kind of like small British jobs.
Sense of competition. We have a question here just from Louise. Again, guys, questions are starting to pile in. So if you want to try and be considered for questions, please get them in as quick as you can, because there's a slight delay with questions coming in. But this is from Louise Claire, saying, "I've never had the pleasure of being in a casting room for Crocodile Casting. Are you happy for actors to introduce themselves to you via email and to send you updates of what they've been up to?"
Yeah, absolutely. We always read our emails. We do read them. If you don't get a reply, it's generally because we're really busy, but we do make a real big attempt to reply to everybody. I mean, yeah, I think, you know, certainly most of the commercial casting directors that I know are happy to receive introduction on email. It's quite difficult if you're not represented, you know, because casting directors don't always have the time to contact actors directly. If we're doing something where we're briefing it out directly on Spotlight, then yes, but, you know, they wouldn't trawl through emails necessarily to get hold of you. That's the only thing I would say.
This is from Safa, saying, any tips for actors when doing the slates, having to introduce yourself? What do you, the client, want to see here? And will you be holding online workshops anytime soon?
Well, if you're doing the slate that we mentioned, which is your little ident at the beginning, it needs to be no longer than 20 seconds. We don't need your whole kind of like list of where you trained, because you put your training on Spotlight anyway. And training, by the way, is something I really do like to see. You know, I think it's interesting. Yeah, so really for that little slate, just your name, your agency, if you're represented, recently I've been doing this and this, and a couple of profiles. That's all that's really needed. And I think the main thing on that thing is just to make sure that, you know, you look like what you actually look like, which is kind of like normal, really, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? They're just a nice representation of yourself. Yeah. In terms of workshops, yeah, maybe we generally put them out. You can follow us on Instagram or Twitter. We always announce our workshops on there. We haven't got any plans at the moment, but if enough people want us to do one, then we will do one.
We'll get the online poll going after this at the CCI.
Yeah.
Thinking about like breakdowns, the tips and tricks. Obviously, the competition is becoming even larger, especially because of COVID. What can people do? We're talking about, yes, contacting you, but what can people do to really help themselves prepare pre-audition, pre-self-tape, pre-everything, to give themselves that slight edge, as it were?
Well, I think one thing that is really important is your Spotlight photo. You know, I'm constantly looking at Spotlight CVs where somebody's got like 27 photographs. Waste of time. Get rid of 22 of them and get some recent pictures. I don't understand why people put production photos on Spotlight. You know, you can't see what you look like. It's not a good representation. For me, if I don't know somebody and I'm casting, I don't know you as an actor, what's going to grab me first and foremost is a really good picture. You know, something that actually draws my eye to you, rather than than something which is too touched up or too old. You wouldn't believe how old some actors' photos are. Some of them have been in spotlight since I started casting, and that is true. You know, so current photos should be done I would say about every 3 years. And also things like, you know, don't have photos up there of you blonde if you're brunette. There's no point, because that's misleading. You know, you need to have a representation. This is why I like this little kind of like living photo thing that I'm talking about, the little ident. So I think that's important. I think in terms of like on your CV, you know, an actor who's got like 15 agents is really off-putting. You know, some actors seem to have multiple agents. Okay, so maybe you've got one for drama and one for commercials and perhaps like a specialist agent, I don't know, for sports or something. But, you know, some actors have got so many agents. You know, apart from anything, that creates a conflict, because it will put people off because they don't know who you're represented by. You could be suggested for a job by one agent, but then there's going to be a fight over who actually, you know, is your main agent. And the actor's like, no, but actually I want it to go through this agent, even though they didn't put me up for it. So that is a bit off-putting. And your CV, CVs that have got, I mean, and we do look at CVs. Just because we're casting commercials doesn't mean we don't look at CVs. CVs that have got loads of amateur work. Professional, Spotlight is professional, and your credits should be professional. There are some actors on Spotlight with just like a load of amateur stuff. I'm not even too sure how they got on there, because I think Spotlight have changed their rulings since then. You know, take off the amateur stuff. It doesn't look good. Better to have a couple of professional jobs and loads of amateur things on there, you know. And I think in terms of preparation for a self-tape, just what I was talking about before, make sure that you've got a good, clear background behind you, you know, that you're well lit. You know, try and, it's often best, you know, if you can get somebody to film you. I know a lot of the time people are on their own and it's quite hard to get someone to film, but to just make everything as kind of clean and clear as possible, and to read the flipping instructions and to get the self-tape, you know, on time. You know, I don't know about other casting directors, I can't speak for them, but we will always give very, very implicit instructions. Sometimes we even ask a director to make a little video so that people can see exactly what's required of them. But yeah, you know, read everything first, and don't just leave it until the last minute.
Instructions moving forward for those thinking about becoming casting directors, thinking about commercial casting. Obviously, you and Tracie did everything slightly different. But if you were going to try and maybe approach the industry now, what would you be doing in that sense to help build up your profile?
Into casting.
Into casting.
You'd need to get work as an assistant. That's the only way you can get into casting, is to go and work in a casting director's office. It is quite a closed environment. It's very female dominated casting, and we're quite secretive because, you know, there's a lot of history. I don't know so much about now about people being so-and-so's assistant, and then it's like agents, same thing. You know, you become an agent assistant and then you walk off with all the clients. So, you know, people are quite cagey about that and sort of quite protective of their little domains. I mean, I'm a founder member of the Casting Directors Association, and it has got a lot better since then because we all communicate with each other a lot more. The CDA, which you can Google, the Casting Directors Association, has got a thing on their webpage where you can actually, or you can write into the Casting Directors Association and put yourself forward as an assistant. They've got a list of assistants on there. But again, it's going to depend on experience. I mean, we get a lot of letters from people saying they want to get into casting and do they have any work, but we never need it because there's two of us. But that's not to say other people won't need it. So it's worth, you know, getting a list of casting directors and writing around. But it's not easy. It's like trying to become a runner on a film set, you know. Nothing in this business is easy. It's all really difficult.
Yeah, it's we've got another one, and I think it's just repeating over again, but just thinking about everyone that's asking questions in here. From Alexander, is just talking about working essentially with actors on Spotlight. If really, I guess in that sense, is it going to be a yes or a no?
It's very difficult because Not, if I'm honest, not really, because there are so many actors. Why do we need to go anywhere where actors aren't on spotlight? I mean, sometimes if it's a very, very difficult brief, we'll put the job out on Mandy or Star Now, but that's really only if it's really difficult. Occasionally we'll put stuff out on Instagram, but generally we use those kind of things for what you would call like real people casting, when we're looking for people from off the street, you know, like families and things like that. Because I suppose if you're an actor, you should be on Spotlight, because Spotlight is the professional directory. And I do know that it's really hard to get on Spotlight. And, you know, but they have a graduate Spotlight, which the drama students go through, don't they? But I don't know if that gives you automatic entry. That doesn't give you automatic entry onto the regular Spotlight, does it, after your training?
Yeah, no, I think it does. Yeah, I think with equity, it's slightly different. I think there's the graduate, and then you have to.
I mean, it could be, you know, if you're writing it, but then again, do you know what I mean? If you're not on Spotlight, then you're not going to know about the jobs that are going on. So it's unlikely that you would write in, and you might just happen to send an email at the appropriate time that we happen to be doing something. But that's like, you know, on the off chance, isn't it? Mm. On the whole, we work with people who are on Spotlight.
Mm. Fantastic. And so I'm just going to put the link here again because people are coming in. We were just talking about Spotlight here and the Casting Directors Association, which is here. Everyone, I'm just conscious of the time again because we've only got approximately just over 20 minutes remaining. It's been lovely with Claire so far. We haven't melted into our seats. Not yet. We'll see how we go. Please. If you're going to watch it back on playback, or you need to run up the questions, obviously we won't be able to answer them back on playback. So get them in now if you can. As we're approaching the final third of the Q&A, Claire, where do you think? And it is hard. You're saying you're very, very busy at the moment, and you're working with dentists. What type of? Do you think the way we see commercials via television, via social media, everything will be slightly different because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in at the moment?
Oh, I'm so bored with all these bloody Zoom commercials. They're driving me mental. And you know, like all the little people in the little Zoomy squares. I mean, that's because people were being. I mean, you know, this is a ridiculous thing, isn't it? With this COVID thing. One of my Italian producers, she said to me, she said, you wouldn't believe how many of our directors' families were in the commercials over COVID, because they needed somebody who could shoot the commercial well, but obviously they couldn't go out and cast it. So they used the directors' kids and families to shoot it, you know, so they were all coining it during that time. I'm so sick of that format. I mean, I realize that, you know, at the moment, and there are still commercials being made like that. We just cast one last week where the actress was having a camera kit delivered to her house and being expected to shoot the whole commercial. I'm just really hoping it's going to change. But I mean, if you watch commercials at the moment, if there is a commercial where, you know, you've got a family, they're all miles apart from each other. They're like in the garden, and mum's over there and dad's the other side on the barbecue, and the kids are like two separate ends, because obviously they can't put actors close to each other at the moment. It is getting better. I mean, it's all just going to depend, isn't it? I think people have been very innovative during this time, but it's all like a bit samey. So I'm hoping that after COVID, everybody's going to have like loads of money to spend, and they're going to do great big extravaganza productions, like swimming actors and all sorts of water fountains and all that kind of thing. I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised at how busy it suddenly got, because I would imagine that obviously theatre isn't really going anywhere much at the moment, sadly, and I know that film and TV is just starting to get going. My partner works in special effects in like the big sort of blockbuster movies, and they're at a standstill. Apart from one that Tom Cruise is directing, apparently, where they're putting all the crew on a cruise ship to keep them isolated for the casting. But yeah, you know, commercials are probably because commercials, you can have small crews. You don't need a massive, great crew. And the production companies love it because they don't have to feed the actors, because the actors are told to take their own food. And yeah, it can all be done like pretty low budget, really. And also the production companies love this self-tape casting. Oh my God, there's someone at the door. Can you bear with me 1 second?
Oh, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. What's on that? It's the doggo. Oh, close doggos. Lovely. Monty. Cute. So, ladies and gentlemen, just if you have any questions, because I can see even more people are coming in, just drop them in the box below. Oh, fine.
It's Amazon.
Oh, we've all been there. I've had throughout this lockdown extravaganza, we've had featured roles of Nan in the background, brother saying, "What you doing?" I'm like, "Well, you can see what I'm doing." Anyways, thinking about the big extravaganzas with how different the commercials will be when we go back to a sense of normality, I guess, and things start to uplift. Thinking about the actor, thinking about the product. Obviously, we're talking about image and talent, but bringing personality. Does the personality of that particular actor, actress, have to fit that brand, or does the brand have to like change the way that the actor presents themselves? Does that make sense?
No.
No, it's kind of, I don't know, because I know that sometimes, oh God, heat, brain, health is...
The actor has to fit to the brand. The brand doesn't fit to the actor.
Mm. I think it's just because of the bringing the personality into it. Where's the fine line in that sense of how much of them can they showcase in the role?
It often quite upsets me. Do you know what I mean? When you do a casting and the actor is fantastic and brings so much personality to the casting, and then you see the finished commercial and you just think, oh, what a bland thing that has turned out to be, which happens a lot. You think back and you think, oh, she was so great in that casting. She was so funny. I can remember one we did for a drinks commercial, and the actress was hilarious. She was so creative and innovative at her casting, and she had everybody on the floor. And then she got the job. And then when I saw the finished commercial, it was just like, what? It was like nothing like what she had brought to the audition that she did for it. I think you have to be prepared to just kind of like be dumbed down, if you like, a lot of the time. It just very much depends on the job, Sometimes they're looking for something, especially when they're doing, if we're doing sort of castings for stand-ups and things like that, then they're looking for kind of like wacky personalities. You can overdo it, because if an actor overdoes it in a casting, sometimes people go, oh God, no, that's too much, or it comes across as desperate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get you. Is there kind of a sense of sometimes danger of complete individuality? You have to always consider of what is going on. It's going back to that listening.
And sometimes it just comes across as people trying too hard, to sort of, and then they're not really being themselves. So it just comes across as a bit fake. It doesn't happen a lot, but a lot of it also you have to put down to nerves. Actors get really nervous, especially often in commercial castings, because it's a very short period of time that you've actually got to prove yourself. Something that I find very frustrating in a commercial casting is, I'm still a bit of an actress, as you've probably gathered, and we'll always sort of like show the actor what to do, sort of act out for them, if you like. And if an actor isn't listening to me, I could say to them, okay, let's go. So remember, you've got to do this look. And often you've got to remember is in commercials, sometimes you're doing something very tiny, which is where self-tapes are very difficult, because they may, often a director will say to me, when you do the casting, because inevitably directors don't come to the casting sessions, and don't ask me why, but they don't. They'll say, what I'm looking for, the main thing I'm looking for in this casting is that look at the end when he looks surprised, but I don't want it to look over the top. I want it to be like natural surprise. So I'll explain this to the actor, and it could be the tiniest look that they need to do. And some people find that really difficult. So I'll say, okay, don't forget, you're going to say the line, and then you're going to do the look of surprise. oh yeah, okay, so he'll do it, but then he doesn't do the look, and I'm like, yeah, but you didn't do the look at the end of this. Oh, sorry, yeah, okay, let's do it again. By time 3, if he hasn't done it, then that's bye-bye from me, because I don't have time to keep, working these things through with people, we've often got a waiting room with 20 other people sitting and waiting to come in, and I just don't have the time. That's not to say he's not going to get the job. He may do, but it's like the self-tape thing. It's important to listen to what's being required of you. Do you know what I mean? Actors sometimes seem to forget these things, and it's probably because of nerves. Tracie and I always try to make people as relaxed as possible.
Sorry, Claire, you just broke up slightly there. So why if you just repeat the last sentence or so? Yeah,
just saying, sometimes actors forget these things, and often it's because they're nervous, and they're trying to hide the fact that they're nervous by being overconfident or whatever. But we have a limited amount of time in these sessions, and some of the stuff is really quite specific. Even things like eating yogurt. A lot of the things we do, there's an eating shot, so the actors get excited because they get fed at the casting, which is pretty nice. But most people don't look very nice when they're sticking a teaspoon of yogurt in their mouth. My job is to make them look nice on camera. So you'll say to them, okay, I want you to eat the yogurt, but don't chew it. You'd be amazed that people go like that when they're eating yogurt. You don't even know you're doing it. Do you know what I mean? You just don't know. Like guys, when they do beer commercials, you say, take a drink of the beer. Get them to take a drink of the beer, and then they go, who nods when you're drinking beer in real life? You don't, do you? But, actors, people do it. They just do, and it's totally unconscious. So my job is to say, don't nod when you're drinking the beer. And then they'll do it again, and they'll nod, or they'll chew the yogurt. Little tiny things like that, which you would never think about. But to the production, to the client, it could be the biggest sin in the world. So you have to go for a commercial casting, and then you need to forget about it. And if you get penciled, that's really good. But don't even get excited about that, because you could find that, 30 other people have been penciled as well. If you get heavily penciled, then you might start to get a little bit excited about it. But even then, don't, because a lot of the time, people will get penciled from the first session. Then they'll decide they want to see more people, or they'll decide they want a blonde instead of a brunette, or this age instead of that age. It's an ever-changing thing, because often until the client sees the first casting, their mind may change. Like, for instance, we've just done a job where the director was set on having a model. The client saw the casting. He wants an actor, So things are evolving all the time. So don't get too excited if you get a pencil.
Yeah, looking at details, the representation, the brand, thinking about accents and identity, like going into that casting. Is it people just, you talking about just, we want to hear your voice, don't push it too hard, but when you're thinking about a particular casting and thinking about, your Italian producer there is, you have to do an Italian casting. Are you just going to go, they're just going to look for the Italian?
Well, the thing that I say about accents is, some actors have got like 40 accents on their CV. That immediately would make me suspicious, because you can't do like 40 accents really, really well. Well, most people can't. A lot of actors, they think they've got a decent American accent. They haven't. Really, they haven't. A lot of actors have got a very good American accent. I'm not saying that, but I mean, you should really only put the accents that you're really comfortable with on your CV, because it's a waste of time otherwise, because we'll spot that the accent isn't very good. So you should really only do that. And in terms of if we were casting an Italian part, we probably would look in the first instance for Italian actors, to be honest with you, because they're going to have the most genuine accents. For Americans, we like to use genuine Americans, but then we would also say, and actors who can do a really convincing American accent. There is no such thing as a general American accent. You know what I mean? People put down general American, but there isn't, there just isn't. You're either going to do New York or you're going to do whatever, but there isn't like a standard American accent. Same with regional accents. People think they can do but then they can't. So just do the things that you're really, really confident with. We do use foreign language actors quite a lot, and again, with languages. You know, the thing is, it's like, if we say we're casting something in German, and we want to fluent, you know, we would generally go for native or fluent in terms of foreign languages. So when you tell your agent what your list of skills are, it all goes up on the old tagmin thing. So you tell your agent, oh, yeah, German. He doesn't know what standard of German you've got. So we're asking for a German actor. He'll suggest this particular actor. The agent will suggest the actor for a job. We'll book him in for a casting. And then 5 o'clock that afternoon, just as we're about to go home, the agent will phone and go, oh, I'm really sorry, but John Smith, he only did German to GCSE level. Yeah, but this is like conversational German. He needs to be fluent. So he's wasted our time. Do you know what I mean? Because now we've got to find another actor to replace him. So again, GCSE level French, German is not worth putting on a CV. Only if you're fluent or native.
And to sum everything up, Claire, and thank you so much for visiting us at the CCI. It's been great to see you again as well.
Yeah.
Again, as of let's see how we do for the remaining time. Just to summarize everything, I guess, of what you said, what you've said, sorry, is just the fundamentals of perhaps approaching commercial casting directors, and also what the do's and don'ts are of being in that room, to sum it up, as it were.
I think it's fine to email casting directors with your details and all that kind of, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like the old days when people would send a 10x8 in a CV. It's an actor's job to, but you know, make it polite. Something I forgot to say at the beginning of this is we get a load of emails. Hey there, how are you doing? Drives me nuts, drives me nuts. Find out who you're writing to, you know, because if you were applying for a job in a bank or whatever, or, you know, you wouldn't write a letter that went, hey there, hey guys. I hate that. Fine, you know, all you've got to do is to go onto the casting director's website. Oh, Claire and Tracie, Crocodile Casting. Dear Claire and Tracie, doesn't take very much to do that. It is rude. Emails that I get like that, I bin them immediately. And also just things like sending a random spotlight link. Write a letter. It doesn't have to be like 20 pages long. You know, just hi, blah, blah, blah. I've just finished my training at such and such. You know, recently, blah, blah. I'd be really grateful if you consider me for various whatevers. Short and sweet and to the point, but polite. Yeah, so that's my first point. So nothing wrong with keeping in touch with casting directors in that way. What was the other thing you said? I've completely forgotten now.
Oh my goodness, the heat's starting to
yeah, my brain.
The kind of the do's and don'ts. And
the do's and don'ts. Yeah, just make sure that if you're, for some reason, if you're held up or if you can't make the casting, to let your agent know. Tracie and I are very accommodating. We will always try and change times if we can. I mean, that's not so applicable now because it's all on Zoom and people have got no reason to be late because they're at home anyway. So that's more for like when you go into the casting. And I think the main thing really is observe the dress code, especially if you're at home. Do you know what I mean? If it's a business thing, then put a suit on. Just because you're at home slobbing about, you know, in the kitchen, or at least put the top half on if we're not filming the bottom half, you know, because you might just be in your knickers at the other end. We won't know about that. But yeah, you know, observe the dress code. And for now, just really make a big effort to make your self-tape look as professional as possible. Read the directions as carefully as you can. And when you come back into studio, which please God won't be too long because I'm going to actually go bonkers if I have to sit on Zoom for very much longer, you know, make sure that you listen to what's being asked of you. You know, get to the casting in good time. And if you're being given a script, learn the script. That's what an actor does. You know, even on Zoom, I'm finding, you know, people have been sent scripts, they haven't learned them. Generally, Tracie and I would say, if it doesn't need learning, we would say, please familiarize yourself, which means to have a kind of a knowledge of it, that's fine. If it says learn it, then learn it means learn it, you know, and we would understand if you only got it the day before. But actors should love to learn scripts, and you wouldn't believe how many lazy actors there are who don't bother to learn the script. And that is annoying because you can't give a really good performance with a script in your hand.
Well, Claire, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. Do feel free to write to us at Crocodile Casting. And I don't know when we're doing another workshop, but if you check out our website at www.crocodilecasting.com, we generally announce them on there, as well as Instagram and Twitter.
Fantastic.
Have a lovely, wonderful rest of the week, and good luck to everybody. Thank you for listening to me rattling on.
You too. Have a nice glass of cold water, or
what do I do? Do I just go? Do I just click the?
Oh, yeah, don't worry. I'll take off. I'll see you soon. Take care.
Take care.
Bye. That was Claire from Crocodile Casting, everyone. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Absolutely sensational and very, very hot. Go chill in the garden for a bit. Reset. Chill. Relax. Coming up at 3 o'clock in 30 minutes time, we will be joined by Amy Jessup for an empowerment workshop.